Hello everyone, this is Evelina. Welcome to my channel Feel, Grow, Live. Today I want to talk to you about a concept within psychotherapy and psychology called your inner voice. When it comes to the importance of certain concepts within the universe of the psyche, you can call it, your inner voice, the way you speak to yourself, the way you talk to yourself, and what that voice is saying is the most important aspect when it comes to determining the level of your mental well-being. So you can't really get away from looking at it. So if you want to do it at home, obviously if you're in therapy or you've been working on yourself for quite some time, you probably are familiar with the concept and how to approach this, and you found your own way. But for people who are new to the therapy world, this video is definitely for you, because I'm going to be talking about the inner voice in very simple terms, how to actually gain understanding about your inner voice and its nature. Why is it important? And if you do want to change it, which obviously I'll invite you and encourage you to, if you find that it's either unhealthy or it doesn't support you or it doesn't support your growth, then we're going to be talking about ways in which you can do that at home in your own space, with a piece of paper and a pen or not. It's really up to you. Okay? So let's start with talking about why the inner voice is important. Okay, well, it tells a story. It tells a story about us. It's the narrative that we hear all the time, whether we are aware of it or not. So it tells us a lot about who we are, what is our identity. It's like a lens we look at the world through, right? It tells us who we are as people. It also tells a story about how, in this case, you relate to yourself. What do you think about other people? What do you think about relationships? What do you think about the world as a whole? Is the world a safe place or unsafe place? It has a profound impact on us in everyday life. It also determines the way you feel. And if the story is negative, in generic terms, so I'm unworthy, the world is a horrible place, I'm unlovable, then this is going to be the way you behave. Okay, so the story that your inner voice is telling us also determines the way you feel about yourself and the world. And the way you feel about yourself and the world determines how you behave, because those feelings are being acted out in the real world, and that actually determines that's your life. That's your life from A to Z. That's your whole life. So the choices you're going to make, the friends you're going to hang out with, the jobs you're going to go for, absolutely everything. It's like a window into who you are. And after gaining some insight into what is the story, because not a lot of us are aware of it. Why? Because we're so busy with living and making everyday choices that we actually suppress it. We don't think about it. So today's video, it is about inviting you to actually look at yourself through that concept. Because once you do that and you actually see the patterns, the unconscious patterns that go on in your head without actually you being aware of it, then you can change them, you can work on them, and consequently you can then make different choices, better choices for yourself. Working with your inner voice, it is like a tool that you can use in order to be able to help yourself. And you don't have to go to therapy for that. You don't have to read books, because no one is going to write the book about you. You need to do that. You need to be this narrator of that, but you need to be able to sit down with yourself and make space, as this is the most important thing. We need to find the time for ourselves. You need to find the time to actually bring it into focus. Reflect on what is the life you're living, right? Why are you feeling the way you're feeling? Why are you making an unhealthy choice? To be able to recognize the pattern, we have many patterns. We are, in our childhood, we are conditioned to think a certain way, to behave a certain way, and all your brain is trying to do is it tries to automate everything. So to really to do shortcuts, to simplify it. And I'm talking about behavioral patterns, I'm talking about thought patterns, I'm talking about emotional patterns. So it is a very patterned way we behave, and we call it personality, right? So when it comes to the inner voice, it's one of those ways in which we can start taking responsibility for how we feel and what we do. And a lot of people and a lot of clients would say to me, okay, I need to start looking after myself. But how do I do that? I don't know how. Well, that's one of the biggest problems in our society. We enter adulthood without having the slightest idea about what do we need to do to be able to function well in this world, right? I know the idea of looking at your inner voice can bring some discomfort in you, can be like, oh, it really doesn't matter, or I don't want to do that, I don't feel like doing that. Well, we've been used to the idea that we need to feel like doing something and then we can do it. But the opposite is true. You need to start doing something to actually feel like this is, to actually bring focus into what you're doing and to actually see the benefits of what you're doing. And whether we like it or not, growth doesn't come from easy things, right? If we were to do pleasurable things that we want to do, I don't think we would get anything done. So I hope by this point you understand why the inner voice is important, why the way you talk to yourself. You need to give some time, you need to give it some reflection, you need to understand the nature of it. You need to understand, and you need to gain some insight into what your voice inside is telling you, so then you can choose whether you want to work on it or whether you want to keep it, because it might be that your voice, your inner voice, your inner narrative is extremely positive, that the world is this fantastic place. Believe it or not, there are people like that, and if you're one of them, congratulations, your parents did an amazing job, and you don't have to watch that video, you don't have to keep watching. But if the opposite is the case, please keep watching. I'm going to be talking about really simple ways of how to start shifting your inner voice.